Mr. Ambassador, welcome to our program. We are at the Rwandan Embassy in Ankara, Turkey, with Ambassador Mr. Williams NKURUNZIZA. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
To ask you today, it would be our pleasure to share with us about Rwanda in general. I'll start by asking you if you would share with us about Rwanda regarding culture and social features.
Thank you so much for inviting me to share the Rwandan narrative with you. Rwanda, for a lot of people in Turkey who do not know perhaps where Rwanda is in East Africa. And we are members of the East African community. One of the things that defines us as a people is our culture. We are perhaps one of the rare countries in the world because we are a mono-linguistic and monocultural group. We speak the same language, we share the same culture, and this is one of the elements that has helped to unite our people. We sing the same way. Traditionally, we worship to gods, the same, same gods. And our linguistic the culture that we share and the language that we share, the strong bonds that bind our country, and a part of the journey that we have had over the last 25 years, a process of renewal and reconciliation has been underpinned by the strength that we derive from the cultural harmony that we have, the cultural unity that we have, the fact that we can share our thoughts and our aspirations using the same language is a very strong thing that we are very proud of.
Thank you, Excellency. And would you please explain to us the diplomatic relations that Rwanda has with Turkey?
Rwanda and Turkey have a very young but vibrant diplomatic relationship. Our embassy here opened about 6 years ago. At the same time, Turkey was opening their embassy in Kigali. And since the opening of our embassies, we have signed about 15 memorandums and agreements of cooperation across different areas. We have MOUs in economy, in industry, in education, in health. We have a civil, a double taxation agreement that was signed recently. We have cooperation within the aviation industry, particularly the air services agreement that we have between Turkey and Rwanda. And these MOUs and agreements provide a framework for cooperation. At a political level and at a diplomatic level, the engagements are very broad, but we have not been able to translate this relationship into actual acts of serious and substantive economic engagement. I would like to see greater movement in terms of Turkish investments into Rwanda. I'd like to see more exports from Rwanda coming into Turkey. So far, our trade volume is about $40 million. Much of it is skewed in favor of Turkey because Rwanda does not have a very strong industrial base. But we have agricultural resources that we would like to see the market in Turkey open for our coffee, some of our fresh produce. And that is a conversation that must be had. It's a conversation we're having. We would like to see greater investments, particularly in industrial development in Rwanda, particularly given the strength that Turkey has across different sectors. One of the areas of growth, particularly in terms of industrial development that we're looking at, is the area of garment, textiles and garment. That's an area where Turkey has strength. We need to find out how we can leverage their expertise and technology in driving transformation within that sector in Rwanda. But there are other areas where Turkey can also encourage their private sector to actually get involved. We're looking at areas in mining, areas in food processing, areas in construction materials development, things like the furniture industry, the leather industry. Those are areas where they have a lot of strength. We have local resources. And of course, Rwanda sits at the center of Africa. We see ourselves, part of our vision is to develop as a regional hub for services, for distribution of goods. And the intention, the vision of our country is to be able to create, to turn Rwanda into the launch pad for distribution of services as well as goods within Africa's interior, and of course from the interior to other parts of the world. But that is going to require that we develop our industry, and the hope is that Turkish entrepreneurs will see the opportunities that are in our economy and the potential of using Rwanda as a springboard for trading and doing business with the rest of the continent.
Mr. Ambassador, in general, would you continue telling us about the leading sectors of economy in Rwanda?
Our economy is still a nascent economy. Essentially, across every sector, there is potential for growth. Right now, our economy is driven by sectors like tourism, which contributes a lot of growth to our GDP. You have agriculture that is the mainstay of our economy because the majority of our people are within the sector. And there is need to modernize the agriculture, both in terms of agricultural mechanization, but also in terms of value addition to agricultural resources. And there is tremendous opportunity in that sector. There is strength in our mining sector that is beginning to grow significantly, and it contributes significant impetus in our economic growth. And there are new mineral findings that have come up that require people to move both in mineral exploration but also in value addition to mineral resources. And then there's the construction industry. And it's an industry where Turkish enterprises have been very active, but I think we need to see more. We need to see more engagement of Turkish companies in the construction industry, not only in execution of projects that are funded by the state or that are funded by private investments in Rwanda, but also Turkish investments, for example, moving into the housing and commercial sector in Rwanda. We would like to see investments in the production of construction materials. Rwanda has a lot of forestry resources. Can we find partnerships with Turkish companies to go into the furniture industry based on the wood resources that Rwanda has, as well as the wood resources that we have in the region, because we need to monetize these natural resources by adding value to them. So back again to key industries, tourism is very strong. It is a growing sector, but it is a sector that requires investments within the hospitality. You need more hotels and resorts. Within the construction industry, the housing sector is a very strong growth sector. As of now, as we speak, Rwanda has a demand for about 560,000 housing units that need to be built over the next 30 years. And those are developments that require injection of private capital, and we certainly would like to see Turkish companies coming into that space. Within the agricultural mechanization space. There are opportunities for Turkish companies that produce agricultural machinery to look at Rwanda and to use Rwanda as a springboard for delivery of mechanization, agricultural mechanization, to much of the continent. And in the area of food processing, there is also opportunity for Turkish companies, particularly given the strength that they have within the sector. And the construction industry in Rwanda reflects a small portion of the demand that exists across the whole of Africa. It is projected that by 2050, within the next 30 years, the population of Africa will double from the current level to about 2.5 billion people. Now, when you imagine the demand for housing that this expansion of population will create, it is massive. But the response to that growth is going to be investments in not just housing development, but also housing materials or construction materials development, because you cannot service the needs of 2.5 billion people who need houses by importing construction materials, by importing windows and tiles and cooling systems and refrigerators, the things that you need in a house. You will need to begin local manufacturing of the inputs that are going to be required to meet the growing demand for housing in Africa that is going to be created by this mushrooming population. It is, in my view, an opportunity for designing business people to actually see the projected growth of population in Africa as an incentive for people to move into the continent and begin to build roots of their industries on the continent in order to be able to deliver goods and services to people on the continent, you know, in the days and months and years ahead.
Your Excellency, still on that note, I would like to ask you about the projects that Rwanda and Turkey have been doing together, ongoing projects or finished projects that have been done in Rwanda.
There are several companies that invested in Rwanda from Turkey. You have, for example, companies in the energy sector. The largest project in the energy sector at the moment in Rwanda is actually driven by a Turkish company, Hakan Energy, from based in Istanbul, executing a $350 million project by putting up an 80 megawatt power plant based on peat. So that is the biggest Turkish or biggest investment by a Turkish company in Rwanda. But we have also had Turkish construction companies engaged in Rwanda. One of them, Suma, has completed a multi-million-dollar convention and hotel development in Rwanda. And they are currently working on another large project, a sports arena in the country. But you also have private investments from Turkey in the area of hospitality, in the area of construction and property development. But it's not enough. We would like to see a lot more companies in the property development space, a lot more companies in food processing space, maybe more activity within mining, particularly in terms of value addition. And of course, Turkey is famous for its tourism. They have built resorts in Turkey. We would like to see Turkish investors actually coming into Rwanda and investing in resort facilities along Rwanda's beautiful lakes. which require sufficient, proper investments into resort development. We would like to see what Turkey has done in areas like Bodrum, in areas like Istanbul or Antalya, some of it replicated in Rwanda, particularly because we have a beautiful country. We have some of the most scenic lakes you can find in a continent that require development as tourist resorts, or where tourist resorts can be developed. And that's what we're hoping to see maybe in the days ahead. And in the agricultural processing space, as well as manufacturing of consumables, consumer goods. It's an area where we would like to see some movement. And of course, within the textile and garment industry, Rwanda is one country, for example, in Africa that has said we don't want use of second-hand clothing, which is a very huge market on the continent, and we want to, out of our own self-respect that is inspired by our culture of dignity, we're saying, let's stop using second-hand clothing, let's build capacity to produce clothing that our people can use. And there is a large market, particularly for garment industry, but it's not just a market in Rwanda, it's a market across the whole continent. When you're thinking about 2.5 billion people, those are too many people to clothe. And for us to be able to do that, I think we need to build industries on the continent in partnership with friends from Turkey and from other parts of the world.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. And how do you evaluate Turkey's opening to Africa as a continent?
I don't know whether it is Turkey opening up to Africa or Africa opening up to Turkey, because Turkey is one country, Africa is a continent. But the relationship between Africa and Turkey took over around 2005. Before 2005, there wasn't much actual engagement between Turkey and the continent. And over the last 13 or so years, there has been vigorous engagement. We have seen Turkish Airlines move into Rwanda, into Rwanda and over 40 other countries on the continent. We have seen more embassies opening up, but we have also seen African embassies opening in Ankara. About 10 years ago, there were very few embassies here. Now we have over 35 embassies in Ankara by African countries. And we have seen also an expansion in trade. We have seen greater engagement of Turkish companies, particularly construction companies, executing projects on the continent. What we have not seen is a greater movement by Turkish industry to build a presence on the continent. We have seen a lot of trade. We have seen a lot of project execution. We have not seen significant presence of Turkish industries, except in a few countries. In North Africa and Sudan and Ethiopia, you see significant presence of Turkish industries. But I would like to see Turkish industries in other parts of the continent, because the continent within Vision 2063, the continent seeks to transform itself, to be able to build a capacity internally to meet the needs of its people. Because the aspirations for prosperity of the African people is not going to be built on dependence on imports of goods and services. It has got to be built on Africa's capacity to meet its own needs by deploying its own people, by processing its own resources and adding value to those resources and being able to trade with the rest of the world. And the next challenge as we go into 2063 is going to be, how does Africa industrialize? How does Africa build technical capacity to enable Africans in partnership with their friends to add value to the resources that the continent has, so that Africa can begin to trade with each other. If you're aware of the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that was signed in Rwanda, in Kigali, Rwanda last year, it is designed to provide a trading platform for the continent to begin trading with each other. But it isn't going to be enough to create a legal framework that allows to trade, but you do not produce the goods to trade with. So the free trade area should act as an incentive to African entrepreneurs and to Turkish and other entrepreneurs from other parts of the world to enter into partnership with Africans to build production, to build production capacity within the continent, not only to meet the needs of the people in Africa, but also to be able to service the needs of the world, especially because Africa is endowed with a lot of natural resources. And the difficulty that we have is that we are not investing sufficiently in adding value to these resources. But it is possible to do that because the technologies are there. The important thing is to find the right partners to tie up with so that you can begin to build the industrial capacity that can add value to the resources that we have. And why shouldn't they be from Turkey?
That's right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ambassador. Would you like to send a message to our viewers at Natural TV?
I think this is an exciting time for Africa and for Africa's friends, particularly as we move towards the actual implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area and the operationalization of the protocol on the free movement of people that would allow Africans to move across easily, enable African products to move across the continent easily. This is a time that all of us, whether we are in West Africa, where you broadcast, or East Africa, or West Africa, or East Africa, or North Africa, or South Africa, this is a time that we should see as an exciting time. And we should all be working together, pulling together, so that even our friends in Turkey can see that Africa is getting stronger because it's pulling together, and they need to come and join us so that we can begin to drive the continent to a future of greater prosperity, because it is possible, and it has to be, because our people deserve better than what we have today.
Thank you so much for being with us at Natural Television with our ambassador, Mr. Williams NKURUNZIZA, the ambassador of Rwanda to Turkey in his office from the embassy in Ankara. Natural Television, my name is Sauda Mganga. Thank you.